same joke again, the same thing. Yeah?
I'm gonna go get my Starbucks now.
So awesome. Let me just point out how awesome Jessie is. Awesome. I'm saying it with all the earnestness I can muster. Greetings, everyone. It is I, Omnibrennen. Welcome back to another episode of Omnicorner. And today, like last week, we got a lot. Not quite like last week. Last week was a bit intense. There was a whole lot of stuff. But, yeah, there's a decent amount of stuff out this week. A little bit of Marvel, a little bit of DC. Starting us off, we've got the Green Lantern Rebirth Deluxe Edition hardback. This is pretty cool. Back in the early 2000s, this was sort of Jeff Johns' initial jump into sort of the Green Lantern mythos that he would eventually continue on to just sort of revolutionize and change and kind of create a giant epic story around. This one's pretty cool. It's basically comes on the heels of years worth of sort of absentee Hal Jordan, more or less, after the whole Parallax incident where he became evil and was killed. We got a bunch of other new characters like Guy Gardner, like Kyle Rayner, John Stewart. They became Earth's newer Green Lanterns just over across that time. So this Green Lantern Rebirth was essentially Jeff Johns bringing back Hal Jordan, the original Green Lantern, not the Golden Age Green Lantern, but Silver Age Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. And this was great. It was just a 6-issue miniseries that sort of saw Hal Jordan walking amongst Earth, sort of content to not be so much a hero anymore, but he was attached, had the Spectre attached to his, I believe it's the Spectre, attached to his soul, and that was sort of what's keeping him alive. But eventually he achieves again the power of the Green Lantern, and he achieves rebirth. It's great. You also see the emergence of Sinestro, reemergence of Sinestro and all that. It's really cool, and yeah, like I said, it was the thing that sort of kicked off Jeff Johns' epic Green Lantern run that saw you through the Sinestro Corps Wars, and Blackest Night, and all that awesome stuff, eventually going on to create new Green Lanterns like Simon Baz, who's really cool. This one's cool. You get all 6 of the original issues, as well as Jeff Johns' original pitch. You get his scripts for issue 1. You also get a story, a side story called Flight that was actually illustrated by the late Darwin Cook. On that alone, it's definitely worth checking out. It's $39.99 cover. Take 10% off. Come check that out. Jumping over to the Marvel side of things, it's sort of an X week, and this week we've got yet another of their not omnibus editions. This is just a very deluxe hardcover. This is XMen Shattershot. What do you do when you're in the early throes of 90s X-Men and you've got a story involving Longshot and Shatterstar? Well, you call it Shattershot. Yeah, this is a fun mixture of sort of stories that didn't all kind of get collected together. There was one called Skinning of Souls, a paperback called Skinning of Souls, I believe, that included some of this material. But this is the first time a lot of this is getting the deluxe hardback treatment that sort of matches so much of the other X-Men deluxe hardbacks that have come out. Included in this are the 1991 X-Men series issues 17 through 24, including annuals 1 and 2, Uncanny X-Men annual number 16, as well as some special issues, X-Men Survival Guide to the Mansion and X-Men Anniversary Magazine, X-Factor annual number 7 and X-Force annual number 1. And yeah, like you saw, or like you just heard, you get a lot of cool stories involving other teams like X-Factor, like X-Force, as well as stories involving, Cyclops and of course Cyclops, because obviously, but Colossus, I meant to say, and Magic, as well as Psylocke. So yeah, you're getting stories with Mr. Sinister as well. Some of those really fun, really kind of out there 90s stories. I believe this is just sort of post Jim Lee. Oh no, it's got some Jim Lee and some Greg Capullo and Kubert, all that. Very much just that, that early 90s X-Men, and it's got the feel and the look that I'm sure many of you recognize. This one's pretty cool, $75 cover price, same thing, 10% off. But the real star of the show when it comes to the new X-Men collected volumes is, of course, Marvel's recent magnum opus in House of X, Powers of X, or is it Powers of 10? I like to say X. That just rolls off the tongue better for me. And yeah, finally this week, the fantastic 12-issue run that was 6 issues of House and 6 issues of Powers, interspersed at kind of weird intervals, but are all collected here in 2 editions. one featuring the art of series artist Pepe Larraz, as well as this variant cover with fan favorite cover artist Mark Brooks. It takes from the obviously the connected variants that he did for House 1 and Powers 1, that out of all the variants seem to be fans' most favorite go-to, because it's gorgeous. It's got a kind of collage of all the characters there, and you've got Charles Xavier and Moira McTaggart sitting on the bench there. You know, a very pivotal moment in this entire story. Yeah, this sort of revitalized my... I've always loved X-Men, obviously, but it sort of revitalized my active enthusiasm for modern X-Men books. It's epic, it's creative, you get a lot of information. There's a whole lot you can discover by going back and rereading it again. And yeah, they even created an alphabet, a weird looking sort of dot and line looking language that the mutants are using now, as they've created they live on the island of Krakoa, and the world essentially has changed. It's weird. It's hard to describe, because it's an sort of an intense reboot, but that doesn't undo everything. It's not like a big sort of revamp where they go back to the beginning and start over and all that. They do interesting things with the concept of retcons, but it's all sort of stuff that sort of enriches the X-Men continuity as opposed to sort of shuns it. You kind of get to it kind of prompts you to reflect upon the stories that you know of and how things are sort of changed and different. I'm really curious to see how the stories are going to continue to unfold as time goes on, because with a lot of times, one of the downsides to sort of big revamps or big event books like this is it'll come out and it'll tout the world's going to change, everything's going to change, and then at the end, sometimes it really doesn't. This felt like a big change, something that I was kind of skeptical. Like, how are you going to follow through with this? And so far, they're on like issues 3 of the various X titles that have come out after this. They seem to be following through, and it's a really strong, cool new direction for the X-Men. If you are needing an epic, awesome new X-Men book that's going to feel reminiscent of things like Grant Morrison's New X-Men or Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men, those really sort of seminal, important stories, this is one of those for the modern day. Let's see, it looks like they're both $60 cover. We'll be taking 10% off all of these as well. Yeah, come and get them while you can. I'm definitely taking one of these home, maybe both. No, I can't do both, but you won't be disappointed. It's epic, it's intense. I noticed a lot of people who didn't really get into X-Men much just because there's so much continuity, found their way into X-Men via this title. It's complex, and if you don't know how it's all going initially, don't be discouraged, because eventually you're gonna see all the puzzle pieces kind of falling into place. Come check it out. I can't recommend this enough. Lastly, the only actual omnibus that we have this week is one of the DC Vertigo great titles by the man Brian K. Vaughan. This is Why the Last Man. Why? Why? Because this series is awesome. I was going on a road trip with my family some years ago. I went to my local comic shop in Dallas. It's no longer there, unfortunately, but I was like, I need something to read on the road. I'm going to be on the road for hours. I want a cool new series. And they put the first volume, deluxe hardback of Why the Last Man in my hand, told me what it was about, sounded cool, and I finished it that day in the car, and I was like, I need the next volume. I need it. Next volume wasn't out yet, but eventually I got a hold of them, read through it. This series is fantastic. It's a really kind of semi-understated sci-fi series, kind of post-apocalyptic, but it's not nuclear cataclysm, and it's not zombies or anything like that causes this apocalypse. It starts you off on just a regular day, kind of like any other. People are going about their day-to-day, and then one day, or just all of a sudden, every male on the planet, any man or animal with a Y chromosome, bleeds out, dies right there, and suddenly you're left in a world that's mostly devoid of men, except for one Yorick Y and his pet capuchin monkey named Ampersand, which I'm totally stealing that name for a pet of mine in the future. Both male, who have survived this cataclysm, and they don't understand why. Well, Yorick, who's very much in love with a girl who was abroad in Australia at the time, decides he needs to set out and find her to make sure that she's okay. And as he travels, you kind of get to see this sort of interesting world that's been torn apart in some ways, and in other ways sort of made better with the absence of men. It's very cool, and you see sort of how, a world in trauma, but a world also adjusting and trying to rebuild. There's a really interesting moment where, after the event has happened and all men are dead, they go to the Secretary of Agriculture in the government, and they tell her, like, you're the new president of the United States. She's like, I'm like, whatever, they're like 12th in line or something, and they're like, yeah, and all those were men, they're dead now, it's you're the only one. So she kind of becomes the first female president of the United States on the back of this sort of catastrophic event. It was a long form series. It ran about, goodness, like 10 trade paperback volumes. It's got like 5 deluxe hardback volumes, 3 absolute edition volumes, the big massive giant slipcase ones that DC loves to do, and now finally, for the first time, it's all collected in one volume. Why the Last Man, the complete omnibus by Brian K. Vaughan. This brick of a book is sitting at $150 cover price, but you get the entirety of the series. That's issues 1 through 60, as well as a lot of these great books coming with sketch art and behind the scenes features. It's a hell of a journey. I can't recommend this one enough. It's steep, but it's worth it. It's an awesome story, and you'll feel like you've really seen and gone some things. Hopefully we'll get a cool series or a movie or a series of movies out of this. I know they've tried a bunch of times in the past. It never quite takes, so hopefully before too long maybe we'll see something really good, especially now that you've got like all these streaming services and HBO and all that stuff doing these really solid adaptations and just cool hard-hitting series. Like, I think Y would be rife for that potential. And yeah, just if you're into apocalypse stories but are kind of sick of zombies, like, here's your possibility right here. Yeah, like I said, $150, but we're gonna knock an extra 5% off the standard 10%, like we usually do every week, getting 15% off this omnibus this week. Come check it out; it's super awesome. That is everything for this week. Almost caused my own cataclysm there. As always, we have a bunch of stuff going on. We'll have details about our upcoming Christmas party. We've also got a signing with... Oh no, why am I blanking? All of a sudden, Donnie Cates, store friend, Austin local, Austin hometown boy, Donnie Cates, writer of Venom, Guardians of the Galaxy, Thanos Wins, upcoming Thor series. He's taking over for Thor after Jason Aaron's epic, like 6-7 year run. I'm really excited to see what he does. A lot of the preliminary art and concept stuff they've come out with for Donnie Cates' Thor run is going to be awesome. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. We'll have more details about that coming along, probably closer to when the series premieres, Thor. And yeah, that is us. We've got our holiday decorations up now. Come check those out. We've got a big old giant, appropriately sized hat on our giant Hulk statue. He's feeling festive these days. Yeah, it's all going. And yeah, happy holidays, everyone. Come and visit us, and as always, omnis to the people. Oh, no one to press the button? I'll just slip on out this way.